You could get in with 24 or 23. That's obviously going to depend on what happens in the rest of the lobbies, but it's something we'll keep our eye on for this game.
All right, well, let's see what shakes out in this Game 6. Bryce Frodan for the final time on day 1. Take it away.
Here we go. The end of day 1 here at the North American Regional Finals. We're hopping on to Cloud9 K3 Soju's perspective, who is on that bubble and needs to have a solid finish to guarantee himself in. And we can start by one thing at a time. Make sure you have a good tempo opening. Make sure you're playing for a strong top 4. And if you can get any extra credit from that, that's good. Remember, the best average placement across the entire tournament will also have a spot for the World Championship. So it's not necessarily just trying to skirt by.
Yeah, absolutely. And the early game is going to matter a lot more here than it has historically, right? When you think about these situations of kind of needing to score 4 or 5 points like someone like Soju or Ramlin does, or even maybe more if you are someone like sorry, I'm blanking on who was the other person that was at 20. Sox, sorry. Then you would say, hey, if I lean to loss streak, that's fine. I can always rubber band it later. But that has not worked out very well today. People have really been doing better when playing from ahead. It's not to say we haven't had any comebacks, right? If you get like an AFK opening, for example, something that's so strong leaning into loss streak, you can certainly pull it off. But a lot of the game has really revolved around preserving HP early, middle, and late. We see the duelist dexterity is the Mirage in play, so Deja very much on the menu this game.
Yeah, and Soju has a bow opening, so keeps himself pretty generic. He has a Yone, so he could even lean back into the Yone reroll like that he tried earlier today. And he also has an Astral opening, although they're all 1-stars. We've seen people with really strong Astral openings still lose streak, but still find their way through. Let's take a look at the first augment here, coming up on 2-1 for Soju, and see if that shapes his early game in the way he wants to.
Okay, it's a silver augment, so it's going to be relatively low power level lobby, at least in the opening. Anything jumping out to you immediately?
So, Mage and the Luden's Echo, there's just no real application of it, right? He has one Mage, and sure, he could play Mage with the ZZ Rod and flex on that glove, but it's just not a strong opening, and you'd be bleeding a ton of HP. And remember, Soju, again, doesn't have to aim for a top 2 or top 3. I think a top 4 just pretty much gets him in. So I think that's okay, and Celestial Blessing is generic, even though I do think Celestial Blessing 1 feels the weakest by a big margin for all the healing-based augments. I'd rather have Thrill 1 than Celestial Blessing 1 in a lot of cases, but I think that's still okay. It's not a bad spot at all.
No, it's not. The augment is fine. The board state is a little questionable. We were talking earlier today about Senna feeling like it's come so far from its former glory as kind of the dominant one-cost carry. It just feels very weak right now overall, even in spite of some of the buffs. Soju electing to level to play Astrals. I think there's a recognition from him that there's no world in which he plays for win streak here, so he can play to preserve HP and build up his economy with Astral. I like the way he's thinking about this stage too.
I do. I think that this is just the way you have to play, because at least he has something that's going in, leaning into his momentum. Yeah, he's not streaking, not anywhere close to it. I do wonder about the Sejuani pair at all. I do think that is worth considering. In fact, he sells it for with the Wukong, so it doesn't seem like he values that given that he already has the Astral plus the Sun. I think that makes sense as we take a look at Sox's perspective, another player that's on the bubble, Bryce.
Yeah, another player on the bubble, but a much better opening in general, as well as a lot of potential power. So he gets that early Volibear, which is really, really strong. As we've talked about, it's probably the single strongest 3-cost in the game generically. He's able to slam a Morello Nomicon, and he's got Prep 1, which is one of the strongest silver augments. I very much expect Sox to be leaning into that Seraphine Graves comp, and in a perfect world, he would love to get offered a Jax. If he gets offered a Jax, then he can set up to get the Shimmer scale rolling online, which could be huge for snowballing his economy to be in a spot to hit all of the upgrades he needs to hit when he transitions his comp at the end of Stage 3 into Stage 4.
Yeah, 26 is the number that we want to be safe with. Based off that, Sox wants to aim for that third and be right in the mix to compete for a top spot in this lobby. Does end up taking out the front line. Kurum's Ezreal has no one to protect it, able to at least snipe that. Off to a nice 2-streak for Sox, who also is prepping some very nice pairs. If he's able to 2-star any of them, does find a 2-star set, which is actually pretty good here in this spot. Can he find that momentum? Does he even have to play Seraphine from here? Like, what are some of his other options, Bryce?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, look, the reality is prep as a concept doesn't lean itself into anywhere in particular. The reason why people favor Seraphine with it is because it's a composition that does so much with all of the sum of its parts, right? You get chip-in damage. Yes, Graves is the primary carry, but Seraphine also does damage. Zyra also does damage. Pantheon also does a meaningful amount of work, right? So you have a lot of units on the board, Zeri as well, pitching in that can benefit from those prep stacks. But the reality is Morel and Omicron can go in any composition in the game, and you can play any composition in the game with prep as well. So while I think Sox probably leans Seraphine from here, maybe he plays it 50% of the time. It just depends on what he hits, what his second augments are, etc.
And you know, you kind of touched upon it as well, which is preparation is what you have to lay in front of you going into the next stage. That's why the Seraphine comp feels really strong, because you can buy a lot of those 2 and 3 cost units that will get prepped as you start laddering yourself in. Sox off to a nice 3 streak. Ramblin is as well. These are 2 players of big focus, need to have a very solid finish. We take a look at the stage 2 carousel.
Yeah, and taking a look at our augments for the first time, we see an AFK augment selected by Pokkygum. Such a strong augment. Unfortunately, he's already mathematically eliminated, so just really a chance to play spoiler. We see Ramblin on the Guardian Heart. We've seen so much Guardian played today. Someone who has not kept up with the meta might be surprised to learn that Guardian's just kind of generic frontline. There are so many AP carries in particular that are going behind it, but AD as well. We've seen Guardian Xayah variants, right? We saw Guardian Zeri last game, which is obviously hybrid damage, there's a lot of magic. So it's a generically powerful augment that Ramblin is playing into, and he's got really strong slams on the AP side of things. So I think we're looking at Guardian Deja potentially into Aurelion Soul from here.
I think so. I think that's where he leans. The +1 Guardian is really important, so that way you don't have to have Itis in order to get 6 Guardian very efficiently. You can get Itis and the Guardians and Deja in, but just a lot of pieces have to be in place in order to get that, and you want to hit 6 Guardian Spike early. And the reason why is because it's such a cheap way. Most Guardians are 1 and 2 cost units to get so much tank HP, and also it withstands a lot of that burst damage coming out from like Seraphine Graves that goes front to back. They have to go through your Guardians in order to get to your back line. Giving Ezreal 2 or whatever unit, even, you know, like Zeri as you mentioned, infinite time to stall. So that is the bare bones of what Ramblin's trying to achieve. But, you know, a unit that can actually get through a lot of that through some AoE. People would consider to be an AoE unit is Volibear.
Yep.
In fact, this is an interaction people don't even talk about. Volibear is actually capable of hitting other boards, by the way. One time I was playing a unit, my opponent had no Volibear, lightning just killed my backline out of nowhere.
Yes, as is intended. You deserve that to happen to you.
What did I do? I bought so much RP.
Listen, it was a player diff. Don't talk if you don't know. That was actually a very impactful fight, by the way. We saw Sox maintaining win streak, Ramblin taking a loss there, so Ramblin not going to be able to streak throughout the entirety of the stage, so he's certainly in a strong position moving forward, especially if he can find his way into an early Deja. As we rejoin Sox's board, our only 100 HP player, and this round coming up for Sox is so mission critical for his entire tournament. Like you said, he needs a top 4 to have a chance. He probably wants to get a top 3 in order to feel good about his chances, and if he can maintain a win streak with this board, that is an excellent building block for him.
And what a comeback that would be for Sox to have one of the worst tournament starts that we've seen since Spicy Appies and LCQ and Amty in the mid-set finale, and be able to make a run. And who knows, we've seen people who barely survived day 1 go on to win the whole tournament. So for Sox, needs to get this win. This Karma targets Inner Flame, is not able to get the kill. And that means Sox is on a 5-round win streak. Things are looking good for Beast Coast Sox at the end of Stage 2.
Yeah, mission accomplished for Sox. Such a big deal as we were highlighting. Going to maintain that streak gold going through. Meanwhile, we joined Degree for the first time. He was not able to fully lost streak, but he's been playing Astrals, actually 7 Astrals on his board. Or sorry, 6, because he only has the Skarner 1. So he's supercharged his economy. He's relatively wealthy at level 5, and it's worth noting he is our other bubble boy. Now, he is on the outside, very much looking in at 17 points, but if he were to go first place in this lobby, that would get to that 25-point threshold, which we're thinking is either barely in or the tiebreaker, though obviously we cannot say for sure.
We'll just have to find out, because we do have an Astral base opening, a Varus pair. Varus 2!
Oh my god!
That is massive. Degree needs to go big or go home, and that could be a very key piece into this equation that Degree is trying to solve, as we did have seen multiple Xayah victories, and it feels like he's in a really good spot to do that. Astro with Varus 2, a very easy link into these Xayah boards, especially if he's uncontested. Maybe can find a way to go for the Xayah 3 that's been the win con for so many.
Yeah, and he could also lean into Deja from here, right? With the Duelist, it's going to synergize well with that Ginsu's Rage Blade. He could also slam a Gunblade here. Actually, Gunblade Slam is not bad overall in this spot. Varus, people have to remember that Gunblade is no longer just like an AP-focused item. Yes, it's adding some ability power, but a lot of what's happening is providing healing for your team with no frontline items. That could actually matter. And by the way, what is this? Varus 2s all around? You get a Varus 2, and you get a Varus 2.
That's insane. Rain has Varus 2 with Knife's Edge and Zeke's. Another thing to note is that Degree only has 4 components, and so the Gunblade is very costly because that's the rest of the items they can slam for the entire stage unless something dramatic happens. So as much as Degree was happy to get the Varus 2, one, queuing into Rain here, very inopportune, taking max damage basically, 5-unit loss. And also in terms of under-resourced with his items, it's looking kind of awkward as we take a look at the picture-in-picture as well and see the actions heating up across the convergence here as we take a look at the second augment coming in stage 2.
Wow, it's another silver augment situation, so we're going to have a very low power level overall on these augments, and Degree has some solid options here. I personally really like Tiny Titans from this spot. We've already paid a ton of HP down at 62, and I feel like in a strong position, but a strong position for the long run, but we're going to struggle because, like you called out, he's behind on item components in the mid game.
Yeah, the only thing is that Best Friends is actual combat power, and he has a way to actually capitalize on it because he has a Rage Blade slammed on top of a Varus, so that was the only other consideration. I do like Tiny Titans, though. I do think that Silvers, given their current power level, there's a few that are anomaly. You talked about AFK, there's a couple of like late game specials under the right conditions. But generally, they're not super impactful, especially when you think about like Celestial Blessing 1. It's just a few hundred hit points. So I think that overall, this is totally fine. And Degree can actually even rest easy a little bit because now he knows that he can trade his HP a little bit with this Astral start that he has.
Yeah, absolutely the case, and we're seeing in picture-in-picture the lower right-hand corner screen, we're keeping an eye on Mismatch Socks to see if he's able to maintain his win streak. Meanwhile, Degree going up against Sully. Sully's got a very strong board, and Sully's in an excellent qualification position overall. Not a mortal lock, but if he gets more than 1 point in this game, I think we're very confidently seeing Sully on day number 2, which is awesome for him. Sully's going to get a nice fight win here. Oh, the thrill. One more time. I think probably too much damage from this Karma cast, but very close, kills some extra units, and that's a great loss for Degree.
I mean, I was telling you, throw one, not too bad sometimes. Oh, this ain't bad either. An early Deja at 3-3, but Soju is at level 7. He's not even playing Hustler or anything else that incentivizes him to be low eco in this way. He does have a Gambler's Blade. What is he thinking about? With the Knife's Edge and Celestial Blessing, he has to be thinking about this Jade Shioyu Soifin line. Is there any way to squeeze in this Deja? It's probably just too expensive.
Yeah, it's really expensive, and he doesn't realistically want to move the items because he's got this Yone too. So this Titans and the Gambler's Blade probably wants to stay there. So I agree with the decision to pass the Deja, though it feels really bad because that could easily be a Siphon or a Shioyu. I would love to have seen the spot Soju was in. He's preserving win streak, but this is not typical Soju play to be so low econ in the mid game, and I wonder what the factors were that wound up pushing him to level all the way to 7 there. But for now, it is working out. He's maintaining his streak. He's got a 5 streak. If he's able to maintain that streak all the way through the end of stage 3, he'll have made back a meaningful amount of money. He actually winds up buying the Deja. He holds the Deja, so he's making no gold on 3-3.
That's a really big deal because Soju has to restart his economy in some capacity, but Deja is a really strong unit, and I feel like he could peel off some of these weaker units he's playing purely for synergies. As to why he's leveling for 7, you look at Ramblin is streaking, you look at Sox who was streaking. I think he really wanted to get the edge and maintain that tempo. In his mind, he doesn't have to play for first. He can try to play for a really dominant top 3 that he knows he has no chance of being top 2. If that is what he's thinking, I can buy it if that's what he's telling me.
Yeah, but there's real risk in that as well, right? Because if he winds up losing this next fight or the fight after, then all of a sudden he's got no streak gold to maintain through his neutral round at the end of stage 3, and he's flat broke. So it's a really high risk, high reward play that if he's able to maintain the streak, I think he's fine. He makes it back and he's consistent, but there is another side of that coin.
Yeah, the side of the coin is he was playing some weak units to get the Shimmer Scale in the first place. We talked about how if you do want to continue the win streak, you have to make sure you're layering in strong units, and this Deja is part of it because he's getting that 4 Mirage. All of a sudden, you're stacking Jade attack speed, Mirage attack speed, and that healing with 2 items. It could be a good spot, but now all of a sudden we see why Ramblin is shrieking. He has 3-item Ezreal as well
and
as a Gambler's Blade with that Itis, and that Yone is going to get cut down really quickly, and it comes down to who's able to hold on a little bit longer. Is this Ezreal with the Gunblade able to withstand the pressure by healing up that Graves, or will this Deja be able to cut through and show you why Soju gave up gold? It comes down to this last Mystic shot, and Ezreal's able to close it out. Ramblin is still on a streak.
Yeah, Ramblin's still on a streak, so big for his spot. And these are 2 of our bubble boys, both Soju and Ramblin at 22 points in this game. Both of them desperately want to get to the 25, 26-point threshold. They both seem to be in pretty good spots to do that, but Ramblin being able to maintain this streak is so massive for his prospects in this tournament.
I know, and now the best part about it is that his board is cheap. It's very modular. You kind of mix and match what he wants. Let's say he does hit that Deja, he has an opportunity to tech that in, maybe play a 4th Mirage as well. As we do take a look at whose prospective matchups are Sox, Kurum, or Pokygom, and it looks like it's going to be Sox who has been prepping his Seraphine board. Seraphine 2, frontlined. That's not something you see every day, Bryce. Will it work out?
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense, right? Seraphine isn't the primary carry of this composition right now. It's the Volibear, and so he wants to get the extra shielding, which means that he wants the Seraphine to take damage. And because it's a 2-star unit, it's going to be able to actually be able to withstand the damage. You saw it was actually so close to being able to cast there. So this is what Sox does, right? He does not just kind of turn off his brain and position his board in the kind of standard way, ranged units in the back, other melee units in the front kind of vibe. Sox is the most creative positioner that we have in North American teamfight tactics, and he is showing that versatility in this game as we head into the neutral round. Our 3 bubble players, Beast Coast Sox, Ramblin, and C9's K3 Soju topping out this lobby. Is there a world in which all 3 of these players wind up in the top 4 in advance?
Oh, absolutely. That is a possibility, given that they are currently 1, 2, and 3. But a player we are focusing on as well in this lobby is Degree, the outside chance, the dark horse who needs something big. He's got 1 out of 9. With that, Zaya is the way for him to commandly put himself in contention for a spot in day number 2. Finds a bow that he could utilize for, say, a Runan's Hurricane, which is very high tempo at this moment, and finds a zippy pair. And the age-old question is, should you be rolling in the spot, or are you gritting your teeth and hoping that you don't bleed too much HP? He has Tiny Titans, and yet he's 7th in HP. Without that Tiny Titans, he'd be in the 20s.
Yeah, and this is why you take the Tiny Titans. It was the more first Wraith play. Sacking a silver augment's worth of value in the late game is something you can get away with. You need to play this game for first place if you were Degree. So I really like the fact that he's not rolling here. And look, there is very much a world in which he goes 7th or 8th in this game. And if that happens, good on you, Degree, because you recognize the tournament situation and you optimize your chances for making it day 2. There's no difference between going 7th and 5th or 4th in this spot, so play for that first, buddy.
Agreed. And this Varus finally starting to get triple items and support. You can see what this comp was missing, but going up against Sox, who has the preparation Seraphine all ready to go, and this is why the comp is to be feared. The best part, Sox is stable with almost a full amount of economy in his war chest. That bodes very well for Sox as we take a look at Ramblin's perspective, who does take a loss to Pokygom, who has a Deja at level 8 and 30 gold.
He has a Graves 2 and a Deja 2 with 30 gold on level 8 on 4-1. I mean, we did talk about how strong AFK can be, and Pocky is showing you why. That is a disgusting spot for Pocky looking to play spoiler in this lobby.
Ramblin goes for the portable forge. Doesn't find Zonia's. Could go for Obsidian Cleaver or Manazane. I have a very hard time to imagine it's Gold Collector. The only problem with the Obsidian Cleaver is it already does something redundant to what Deja has built in. Deja has Magic Shred. to disarm that magic resistance of frontline tanks already, so it's not nearly as applicable, but hey, it's still not a bad thing to have.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to see if his reroll option was available there. I'm assuming it wasn't because in general, Portable Forge is pretty weak the later in the game you go. It's really strong early in the game. It kind of falls off over time. It's a rare 4-2 augment selection. So going up against Kurum X, which we're seeing how popular Deja is on this Duelist Dexterity. We've already seen 3 Deja players, and it's going to be very crowded for all of these folks. Kurum with that really strong scaling iteration of the Deja with the Archangel plus the Jeweled Gauntlet, which is going to synergize so well with that ramping AP against the Gunblade version of Deja trying to keep the front line alive. It looks like Kurum has this one to me.
Interesting. I guess because of the Itis too. If it wasn't for the Itis too, I think I would put his Ramble in favor just due to the fact that he's able to keep his front line alive that much longer. But you can see this Itis just lived way too long, and that'll be all she wrote for this fight. Ramblin takes another loss, but again, a lot of people are a little bit stronger than he is right now, so that's to be expected. Finally, we check back in with Cloud9's K3 Soju, who is on 7 Jade, and does have the Shio-Yu and the Siphon. Choosing the itemize Siphon over Shio-Yu, I think a lot of people have questions about what to itemize when. In this case, he chose Siphon. Do you like that, Bryce?
The thing that's impossible to say is whether or not he actually had the Shio-Yu. Like, did he make this itemization choice, or was it just, hey, this is what I have right now, so obviously I'm going to put the items onto it? Shio-Yu seems to be the more consistent carry. Siphon seems to me to be the like crazier for threat, right? And anyone who's dealt with Siphon's rampage over the course of this set has been on the good side and the bad side of it. And so sometimes these items on Siphon can feel like a total troll, and other times they might feel like your Siphon is a genius in winning fights. Absolutely, because of it. Going up against this incredibly strong board that Pokygom has, we're taking a closer look at that Graves 2 and that Deja 2. Just too much power on Pokygom's side of things.
Yeah, it's a lot of stats to fight with on the other side. And so Soju just take a loss, but at the same time, he recognizes that Pokygom is one of the strongest people in the lobby, streaking at the moment, as the other Deja players are floundering just a little bit. Kurum, for example, he's at 0 gold, level 7. He's in a really awkward spot. We'll see whether or not he's able to turn around. Just take a look at the Stage 4 carousel. All the gold tier augments, nothing really stands out other than the fact that we have a lot of either item-based or combat-based augments.
Yeah, we've got a couple of item component grab bags, which makes sense for both of those spots, right? There's a lot of item holders on both the lines that Sox and Degree are playing, and then you see some just generic combat power augments. So all of this makes sense to me. Taking broader stock of the lobby, we have very interesting complexion shaping up where all the people who are basically either guaranteed out or guaranteed in are at the bottom, and then you have the reverse at the top, with the lone exception of Pokygom, who could theoretically disrupt someone else's opportunity to get through. And there is the Aurelian Soul for Ramblin', which is such a big hit. This is so awkward, though, because he's only 1 off of the Deja 2, and that Deja 2 probably secures him his spot in tomorrow. The flip side of this is the Aurelian Soul is much stronger on his board right now, so this is a really tough call.
Six Guardian is also very good right now. Let's see how he ends up utilizing this. He puts all the items onto a Rakan 2, just either temporary or maybe even find a way to reforge that later on. We'll see. As the Deja does get confronted by the Zippy, the Somersault Assault does end up going the other direction. No items on that Zippy to really make it scary. And Degrees Varus is just having a tough time dealing with a single Rakan that's just in the face, disarmed again. And that just means Degree is going to take yet another loss. Despite having so much HP to work with this game, it just feels like Degree is not able to get any momentum, once more thrusted back into a bot 2 spot.
He does have Shyvana pair and Xayah pair, though, so there's some big potential spikes. He also just hits the Jace, too, so let's keep an eye on Degree. Meanwhile, Ramblin' in that very contested Deja line feels like he has to roll to 0. Both the Itis and the Deja are such big spikes. If he hits either of those units, I would expect to see him sell the ASOL and commit to the board. But at this point in time, Mortdog functionally has the wheel for Ramblin'. He's at 0 gold. The chances that he gets to 9 anytime soon are very low. He chooses to sell the Deja. Yeah. I assume he scouted it around and just saw there was just too much Deja out of the pool, and he felt like he needed to play his strongest board right now, given his point situation.
I think so. Plus, Sox being in his pool means that the Aurelian Soul is a better matchup. Everything clumps up. The disarm from Rakan comes in. Here comes the chain stuns. seeing if it can affect and lock down the Seraphine comp on time, but it looks like they're going to get the shields off. Oh, and the vines from Zyra are going to stop the secondary cast from Aurelion Soul. And so the Black Holes have ascended, but there's just so much Sox left and almost nothing from them. It needs this cast to go big. But the Mystics is just able to withstand it, and now they're coming for that Aurelion Soul. Can that last cast come in time? No, and Ramblin takes almost a full loss. And losses like that can let the game get out of control for Ramblin.
God, that just feels so bad, and that's the problem with facing Seraphine comp is it's just so hard to kill units if you don't have enough damage to get through, and he just didn't. So big loss for Ramblin, and things are getting a little scary for him as we head into the Treasure Dragon stage of this game.
I mean, this is just not looking like a first place spot for Degree. We didn't hit Xayah 2 quickly. We do have Shyvana though, and that is nice, and we have that Shyvana pair. If we hit that Shyvana 2 and we're able to get Xayah 2, now we're talking. But you would have to encourage Degree to open sell. Sell that Varus 2 without a guarantee of a Xayah 2, and sell that Zippy without any guarantee. And I just don't know if that's the correct call here.
Yeah, meanwhile, in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, we see Sox rolling down at level 8 for the Seraphine comp. He's got most of the core units fully prepped and most of the core units upgraded. We would love to be able to find an upgraded copy of that Graves, but he does hit the Pantheon too. And with 69 HP, Sox and prep, you know, given his augment complexion, Sox is in a very good spot to get the job done. He needs to get a top 3 in this game, and I think he's got a very high likelihood of doing it. So Sox fans rejoice, at least for the time being.
We'll see. Pakigam on the other side, again, you talk about being spoiler, but he did end up taking a loss. I mean, this stage is just getting scarier. Now the fact that, you know, he does have the prep stacks ready to go, and he's been able to get 3 items onto it, and there's just no unit contending the stage in the back line. The assault from Zippy not able to do anything, and Shyvana, by the time gets her second breath of Dragon's Descent, not able to get it done, but Pakigam's Varus able to clean up too much of that front line. And all of a sudden, you're starting to see the cracks in the armor for Pakigam's army, playing a lot of things that don't go together very naturally and doesn't have a very strong amount of tankiness. Yeah,
this is the way that Pakigam loves to play the game. That hit for Ramblin is so massive. The 3-item Itis 2, such an important spike. He has no reasonable prospect of hitting an A-Soul 2, but hopefully this board is enough. He's at 32 HP. He's been free-falling for the last 4 or 5 fights. Will this stabilize him and get him his ticket to tomorrow?
We also called out the possibility that Ramblin was playing for a Reforger. Do you see a Obsidian Cleaver in a blue buff?
I do not. I do not.
Anima Vision and Redemption instead. What an incredible fortuitous set of events for Ramblin. Lean towards Dows, recognizing this is not good right now, but I can use it and ladder my way up into something more useful. The Shadow Assault and able to stun the back line. The combination of Pakigam with the Hecarim and the Deja doing a good number of work so far. A second cast of the Shadow is able to stun, and Ramblin, despite having this Itis 2, has to keep this Radiant Soul alive. It finds a way to get sniped just because the Deja's cast, then all of a sudden the fight is lost, but the Wind Blast missed! How did it miss? It was sitting right there! And what a fortunate series of events here for Ramblin again, and that's exactly what he needs to book his ticket to day 2.
God, does he need this. The lobby HP is so condensed. Sox at the top at 60, Kurum we saw in the lower right hanging on at 9 HP, and Pakigam, who's been free-falling, has been able to get to level 9 and has a lot of potential to cap out his borders around dragons. We are in for a wild finish. No one is safe. Ramblin, Soju, and Sox all in jeopardy here. All of them have the potential to make it tomorrow, but all 3 of them could bottom out as well.
Soju's Pantheon 2. That could be a really big Degree hitting Xayah 2 as well. A lot of tier 4 units getting online. Ramblin rearranged at the last second, trying to juke left or right based off his opponents. And on the other side, Sully TFT playing a 3 dragon setup with Deja as well. But Sully's board looks a lot weaker. Only Deja 1. Looks like it's a Terra 1 with 3 items. The item situation looks good, but in terms of the quality, wait! Aurelion Soul gets sniped by the Zippy, the Somersault Assault! And just like that, the damage source is gone for Ramblin, which means he's just hoping to clean up as many units as possible before he takes, inevitably, a giant wave of damage.
And this is the problem with Ramblin's board. He has no damage left when his A-Soul goes down, so if the Zippy targets it because it's high HP in the back and the Deja Wind Blast goes through it, then it's just dead. And Ramblin all of a sudden down to 1 life. I felt so good about that matchup, but the way in which the fight RNG played out was just not to Ramblin's favor. Meanwhile, Pakigam takes another loss down at 6 HP. Degree at 7, Kurum X out in 8th place, but it does not matter. Kurum has already punched his ticket to tomorrow.
It's tough. There's a Garden Emblem also on the carousel for anybody that wants that's playing into that strategy, but no one's going for it, so she takes a Locket instead, playing that double front line with that Knife's Edge. See if you can make that happen. A lot of posturing on it. Some of the most indecisive or mind-gamey carousel, depending on how you want to frame it, that you'll see all weekend long as you take a look on Degree, his final stand here in the North American Regionals. Is it the Cinderella story about to turn into a pumpkin? Or can we live a little bit longer? That's a Shyvana 2. That's exactly what he needed.
That's exactly what he needed and exactly what Ramblin didn't want to see. He really wants to get as many points as possible. He needs Degree to go out in this lobby, and now he sees him hit the most massive power spike and not one that you're supposed to get with no Bard increase on odds. The likelihood of being able to get to this, actually it looks like he did have Bard increase on odds at some point, but regardless, this is such a big spike with the Shyvana 2.
Rampage.
The Rampage going up against it. It's on to the Zaya, but the Zaya is still okay. Free hitting in the back line. There goes the Feathers Fry, and this Siphon is running away. There's no damage left for Soju on the board, and it's going to be a win for Degree. Can Ramblin hang on here?
Yeah, we're looking at Ramblin and whether or not the Surveillance Soul can outlast, but it looks like he can't really deal with that giant Seraphine comp, and another big wave of damage! Ramblin can't die, and he does in 6th place! Pokegum able to at least have him in 7th, but that is only 3 points to Ramblin, which means once more, for the 3rd consecutive set, are we going to tiebreakers to determine the fate of Ramblin?
God, please no. I just want to see Ramblin advance. He's such a special player, and it feels like the second half of the day has just gone against him. We saw him playing this contested line. We saw other people getting it online. Ramblin not able to get it done, unfortunately, and the Degree with this massive power spike able to get him a fight win against Soju. So Degree sort of playing spoiler in this game. Degree's hope is still alive. Can he somehow deal with this board? There's a Zeri 3 on the other side, and everything is pretty scary and upgraded.
I mean, Degree right now is just holding on by the skin of his teeth. The Dragon's Descent, very effective. Shyvana does have good attributes into this comp, but just not enough damage to get through and survive. Everything barely lives, and Degree's run in North American Regionals will also be cut short here in 5th place. But his loss is the gain of Cloud9's K3 Soju. He needed top 4, and he got it.
Yes, he got it. Soju is very likely to advance to tomorrow at this point. Obviously, we will not know until we see this final scores. Sox also an excellent position because he is topping out this lobby at 44 HP. We've also seen Sox's board, and it's ridiculously strong. It's hard for me to envision Sox not top 3ing from this spot, and if he top 3s, that means we're looking at enough points very likely to get him into tomorrow. So Sox playing with his back against the wall basically the entire day, and he does it. Very, very impressive performances from both Sox and Soju in this game.
Sox just has to outlive Rainplosion, Sully TFT, who is streaking, or Soju. Does have good matchups on paper against what Soju's comp has to offer, but Soju has very good augments relative to the silver, silver, gold dynamics, able to stack his Celestial Blades and make it very good. If you take a look at Sox's POV, Sox will be going up against Sully, Soju going up against Rainplosion. What's going to happen in this critical 6-1 fight?
Yeah, and Soju does have a Zephyr to play with, which could pay huge dividends in this fight. We've seen multiple fight swings over the course of today based on good Zephyr placement. Soju, one of the best Zephyr players in the entire ladder. Let's see what he does. A last-second swap. He knows who he's playing against. What unit did he go for? Did he land it? He did.
Nice!
It's directly onto the Shio-Yu. Such big micro play from Soju in this spot.
I mean, this is a big play for Sox as well. If Rain goes out here, puts Sox into day number 2. But Soju's getting a little overwhelmed. It's definitely the swan song diving of the Siphons goes against Soju. Sox gets a huge win over Sully, though, and that's what he needs, and that almost puts it away. We have a little bit more left to play this game to determine whose fate will be hanging in the balance and who will advance. as Soju just needs to live a little bit longer. His job is very much here, but he also can book some tickets for his friends.
Yeah, booking tickets for your friends is very valuable. It's not the TFT we play, it's the friends we make along the way. And I promise you, Soju would rather have his buddies with them at the end of the day, especially since North America as a region overall, and this doesn't get talked about enough, we really collaborate with one another. We share information, we improve as a server. So if we can advance our best players onto tomorrow and hopefully onto the World Championships, then maybe, just maybe, we'll have a chance of taking down a World Championship in a League of Legends game.
Sox is fighting Rainplosion in the bottom right. Can Soju find a way to get Sully down here as well? He's down to 10 HP. And this Deja is starting to finally work, but look at the dodge from Jax, able to lock down somehow a heat-seeking missile for that Deja in the back line. And Soju's Rampage, just enough to be able to take down this Deja, and Sully is out, which means Sox with that top 3 should have that 26-point threshold to join us for the second day of regionals.
The key word here is should. We will not know until we get there, but based on the simulations going in, we can predict that both Soju and Sox have a very high likelihood of making it tomorrow. Both of players coming into this lobby having so days so far, very back and forth for both players, and they were both coming in with so much confidence. In fact, both Soju on our show yesterday was saying that he thinks by far the best 2 players in the field are himself and Sox. So what a way to do it in the same lobby, both playing from behind and making the magic happen.
We'll take a look at whether or not he can follow that up. Gets a Zephyr onto the double Warmog Zac, which gives him immediate midline access. Can he find a way to go to the back? The Rampage charges, but doesn't really target to the correct targeted unit, and as a result, Graves turns around, says, what, you wanted my attention? Immediately 2 taps to Siphon, slaps Soju back down to 3rd place, unless Rainplosion's got him, and Rain looks like able to get that victory. So Soju, even if he goes out 3rd here, should be in a good spot. And what a performance once again from Rainplosion to put herself here. She's had such a dominant day of competition, another top 3 finish for her.
What a monster. She has been playing different lines throughout the day, and it feels like she's just always in a solid position to top 4 and potentially even to play for 1st place. It very much feels like she has the 2nd strongest board right now. She's just Soju's father in many ways, so to speak, right? She's just a stronger version of the Siphon board with the double carry, well itemized, and Rain has been putting on a clinic. And it's worth noting that while Rain had already guaranteed a spot into tomorrow, the last place for Worlds in this tournament is going to be going based on average placement. So Rain having yet another finish is going to put her at or near the top of that statistic heading into tomorrow, which is really, really good for her.
It's huge as long as she can keep stacking. Is that Seraphine 3? It is. Sox has now put his stamp onto the lobby. First will guarantee himself to move on to the next day, but we'll put a pin on that as we have Rainplosion versus Soju.
Yeah, we saw this matchup before, and Rain very easily won it despite having one of her 2 primary carries, Zephyr. This time, Soju misses the Zephyr, and it just feels like there's so much power on Rain's side with the triple items well itemized on both the Siphon and the Shiou. It's really a double threat comp versus a single threat comp, and you know what? I learned math from Kiyun, and I am quite confident that 2 carries is better than 1 carry.
Oh, you learned it from Kiyun?
Yeah.
Oh, you should teach it to him sometime then. Well, we'll see whether or not Rainplosion can keep up the momentum as she does end up beating Sox. That was her ghost. Is Rainplosion about to stack yet another dub onto her never-ending list of achievements on today? Like, what is happening in this lobby? I thought Seraphine 3 would seal the deal, but it looks like far from over at the moment.
Yeah, far from over. It's impossible to say what happened in that fight because we didn't really get a chance to watch it, and certainly Siphon Rampages and the RNG component of that can absolutely swing fights. So here we go, another look at this fight. We see some last-second repositioning from Sox. He goes to the opposite corner. He's got that Zac in the front line to try to deal with these 2 big dragon threats.
Shiou and Siphon walk up, whether or not they can stall. Seraphine is isolated. The Rampage takes out half her life and does lock her down with the Bard. Another bite onto the Graves, but does not able to get it off. Seraphine barely lives, and Shiou now is all by herself. I don't think that's enough. Usually you need the 2 dragons to double team. And just like that, Rainplosion streak has ended. But she has 50 gold. She's been saving up. She's been looking for a way to go to level 9. She has an opportunity to play for more. Let's see if this last item and gold injection can change anything.
So let's see here. On the left side, we have a Static Shiv, which is the first instance of Magic Shred on the left side board for Rainplosion, but not a particularly great item. It's not terrible. You'll put it onto that Soraka and some additional stats that are valuable. Meanwhile, we have an Edge of Night for Sox. That is such a good item for Sox. The problem is Graves doesn't have an item slot left available, so it's actually not going to be able to do very much work on his board at all.
As a Reforger, could use it on the Edge of Night.
Yep.
I think also we have Whispers, so the Shred is not really that important. In fact, anything, the attack speed just for the raw cast might even be better there for the Soraka. So it's okay on both sides. Nothing amazing, but nothing completely useless. As we do see the level 9 from Rain finds a bar 2. Can we find another Mystic perhaps, or something else to tech in? We have Yasuo. There's something that Rain's gonna look for. She only has a little bit of gold left because she finds something to turn the tides.
Yeah, and it could also just come down to fight RNG, right? We saw that Siphon basically within one auto attack of killing that Seraphine. If any splash damage wound up on that Seraphine, she might have been able to roll over the entire board. Meanwhile, Sox was able to get some extra prep stacks on these units. That's going to add some value. So here we go, one last time for the game and the style points.
And the Pantheon's lined up correct on both sides, able to get the Age of Assault and get the immediate anti-heal. Huge bar temper fate, locking out all the units. Siphon's wrapping around the back. Can we find a way to get this Siphon to charge up and maybe end the damage? Graves is almost down. And does this mean Rain's able to do it? But all the dragons are down, so it's just up to Yasuo. I don't think that's going to be enough. Too many 3-stars. And when his back was pushed to the wall, you never corner the tiger. Beast Coast Sox closes day 1 of the North American Regionals with a first place and pushes himself to day number 2.
Sox was the favorite coming in.